First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Yahweh is the name of who this world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shai is the name of who this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Bahashem means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Kwadash means holy, and that's all in the Paleo Hebrew. I also want to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of a great millstone that taught me this truth. Today I wanted to go and break down 2nd Esdras, the 11th chapter, right? And just pretty much go make a quick overview going over it and hit some important points, right? Because this is a powerful chapter, right? Prophecy that came to pass, right? This was Esdras over here writing these things because this chapter goes into the Roman Empire and dealing with the Caesars. And here it is, you have Esdras 400 years before Julius Caesar, right, the first Caesar, came to rule. Here it is, he's writing about all the Caesars that are going to come to pass, about the order that they're going to do that, right? And when you link it up to the history that we now have, being able to show and link it together, hey, it makes 100% sense. And it also proves that this book is not a fairy tale and this is all real, okay? The prophecies of the Bible are real, and we're living in prophetic times right now, okay? In the fourth kingdom, right? The Roman Empire, or America, with NATO EU, which is the reborn Roman Empire, right? That beast. Okay, but let's just start at verse 1. I just wanted to get that point across. Verse 1 says, Then saw I a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads, right? And that eagle is going into the Roman Empire, right? The 12 feathered wings is going into the Caesars, right? The 12 Caesars that were ruling Rome. Right here I have that, okay, on Wikipedia, the 12 Caesars. And it has it here on the left: Julius, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Those were the 12 Caesars that ruled Rome, right? And it says, and the 3 heads, right? The 3 heads here is talking about the first triumvirate, right? Which was composed of Julius, Pompey, and Crassus, right? Julius, Pompey, and Crassus, as it says right here. And these men, let's read what it says, right? It says the first triumvirate was an informal political alliance among 3 prominent politicians in the late Roman Republic, right? Pompey, Crassus, and Julius. The constitution of the Roman Republic had many veto points in order to bypass constitutional obstacles and force through the political goals of the 3 men. Right, they forged in secret an alliance where they promised to use their respective influence to support each other. The triumvirate was not a formal magistracy, nor did it achieve a lasting domination over state affairs. Right, so they pretty much had an agreement, these 3 men, right, because these 3 men were very influential people back in Rome. We had Julius, which was pretty much leading the army, right, and Pompey and Crassus, they were in the political and economical areas, right? They're in control of the politics and economy. So between politics, economy, and war, the army, these men, they had an agreement on how to control things. It was called the First Triumvirate, right? And then later you had Julius's nephew, Augustus, which started the Second Triumvirate, okay? But when it's talking about here, the 3 heads is talking about the First Triumvirate, and the 12 wings is going into the 12 Caesars, right? Which Julius was part of those feathered wings, right? Of the 12. And just I wanted to go down and skip down here because it goes into it. And actually, let's get a precept going into this. Let me actually keep this tab, add it open, go into it later, right? Because in Daniel, the 7th chapter, it goes into the eagle. Right, the 4th beast, which was dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Right, this right here is talking about Rome, right, the Roman Empire, okay? And if you go to Daniel 2nd, they even have it lined out here, right? It tells you down here, right? The Roman Empire, the fourth kingdom, right? And it also talks about that in the same chapter, 2nd Esdras chapter 11, right here, 3rd verse 39, it says, "Are not thou it that remainest of the four beasts?" Right? The four beasts referring to Daniel 2nd in the 7th chapter, right? When it says in Daniel chapter 7 that he saw a vision, right, with four great beasts coming from the sea, it was talking about those kingdoms. And it says, "Are not thou it that remainest of the four beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them?" Right? And that's just a point I wanted to establish, is that this is all talking about the Roman Empire, right? Because a lot of people, they would read this towards the end. It starts talking about how after this empire fell, then refreshing came. And a lot of people say that this is talking about America, right? There's some symbolisms, right? It's true that after America, Babylon the Great, the Israelites are going to rule and the earth is going to be made refreshed, right? But this is still all talking about Rome, okay? Rome. But let's just keep on going on the point. Verse 2, it says, "And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the wings of the air blew on her, and were gathered together." Right? The wings is going into the other rulerships, the other governments. Right? This Roman Empire, hey, they were going around and conquering everything around them. Right? Spreading those wings. Verse 3, "And I beheld, and out of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers, and they became little feathers and small." Right? When it says contrary feathers or little feathers, it's just talking about the Caesars that were of less magnitude, that ruled less, had a less significance, right? That's all it's talking about when it says that there were contrary feathers or little feathers. It was just one of the Caesars that had less power, right? They weren't as important. It says, "But her heads were at rest. The head in the midst was greater than the other, yet rested it with the residue." Right? The head in the midst is talking about Julius, right? He was greater than Pompey and Crassus, right? He was the one that was more extolled, right? Had more power, was more famous. He was the one that was greater than the other, but even him, he rested in the residue, right? Even he died, right? All these heads were at rest, okay? And hey, it's beautiful how this is written. It gets back to those heads at the end, right? Because those heads ultimately end up coming back by the way of reincarnation. But as it says, "But her heads were at rest, they all died. The head in the midst was greater than the other, Julius, yet he still died, it rested it with the residue. Moreover, I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers, and reigned upon the earth, and over them that dwelt therein." Right? During this time, right, you had Rome conquering everything around it, everything of that known world, Asia Minor and parts of northern Africa. They're just completely going around killing, murdering, robbing, raping, right? Just setting order. It says, "And I saw that all things under heaven were subject unto her, and no man spake against her, no, not one creature upon earth." Right? And when it says that no man spake against her, it's not saying that nobody was actually not speaking against her, right? Obviously, there was rulerships that were against the Roman Empire. It's just saying that nobody was able to overcome the Roman Empire, right? Nobody was able to come against this great power, right? The fourth kingdom. It says in verse 7, "And I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose upon her talons, and spake to her feathers, saying, Watch not all at once, sleep every one in his own place, and watch by course." Right? This is pretty much like the spirit saying to the feathers, or the eagle, Salakia. This is the eagle, right? Which the eagle goes into the body, right? Which the body was the Senate, right? The Senate was pretty much having all these Caesars rule one at a time. As it says in verse 8, it says, "Watch not all at once," right? They could have ruled all at one time, but that's not how it was set up, right? It says that everyone, verse 8, "Watch not all at once, sleep every one in his own place, and watch by his course." Right? You had Julius, that he had his own course. Then after he died, then you had Augustus. Then after he died, then you had Tiberius, right? And everyone was going at his own place and by his own course, not all at once. It says, verse 9, "But let the heads be preserved for last." Right? Because those heads, as it was going into, they were being preserved to come back. right? And that was talking about the reincarnation. And we're going to get to that point. Verse 10, and it says, "And I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the midst of her body." And that's what I was talking about, right? The voice, the way of things being set, right? The order, the rulership, it didn't go from the heads, it came from the body, which is talking about the Senate, right? Because one thing that was different from this kingdom, right? It talked about it in Daniel, the 7th chapter, right? It says it right here, right? Daniel, the 7th chapter, it says that it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it. And the reason for that is that this kingdom wasn't a monarchy. Well, it wasn't like all the other kingdoms where you had the king, and then after he died, the son of the king ruled, and after he died, his son ruled. No, it was set up with the Senate, okay? These Caesars, they were ultimately inaugurated to be in that point of power, okay, by a collective body, right? And there's a precept to that in First Maccabees chapter 15 and First Maccabees chapter 8 and verse 15. It says, "Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting a way for the people, to the end they might be well ordered," right? They had this set up just like today, which shows that America is just, hey, the reborn Roman Empire, right? It ultimately shows that your vote doesn't matter. It ultimately goes back to the Senate House, and they control everything, right? And verse 16 says, "And that they committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them." Right? They were the ones that appointed that Caesar to power, and ultimately were the ones that were directing everything. The exact same way today with the presidents. Okay? But where was I at? In verse 10 it says, "And I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the midst of her body." Right? That's Senate. 11, "And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them." Right? Contrary feathers, once again, going into, there was 8 Caesars of just less power, less significance. It says, "And I looked, and behold, on the right side there arose one feather, and reigned over all the earth." Right, and this is now starting to go into the chronological order of the Caesar's ruling. Right, that first feather is going into Julius Caesar. Right, the first feather that ruled over the earth. It says, "And so it was that when it reigned, the end of it came, and the place thereof appeared no more. So the next following stood up and reigned, and had a great time." So right, Julius reigned. After it, he died. In his place, that rulership, it didn't appear anymore. Right, it was done. And after him, another feather, stood up and reigned, and had a great time. And this, man, the way this is written shows that this is talking about the Roman Empire, and that prophecy is real, because the next one that reigned a great time, was Augustus. Which Augustus, hey, he was the one that had the longest rulership, right? He ruled a great time, right? Let's search up how long did Augustus rule, right? Augustus, right? Some scholars, they say he ruled 40 years or 44 years. Let's just go off this one. It says 31 BC to 14 AD, right? So you had 31 to 14, and it's 45 years, right? And no other Caesar reigned that amount of time, right? He reigned the longest rulership, which ties to the prophecy, right? And it breaks it down even more. But let's reread 13. It says, "And so it was that when it reigned, the end of it came, and the place thereof appeared no more. So the next following stood up and reigned, and had a great time." Right? 45 years of rulership. Right? Imagine if you had a president, if you had Barack Obama up here ruling for 45 years. Right? This was something a never heard of. Right? A great accomplishment. And ultimately, I think this time was referred to as the Pax Romana. Right? The Pax Romana, which means a state of comparative tranquility throughout the Mediterranean world, from the reign of Augustus to the reign of Marcus Aurelius. Right? Starting with Augustus, it was called the Pax Romana. And this is when the Roman Empire was pretty much in the height of its glory. Right? Peace and prosperity. Let's get back to Esdras. Verse 14, it says, "And it happened that when it reigned," right, when Augustus was reigning, The end of it came also like as the first, so that it appeared no more. Right? His rulership ended. In verse 15, then came there a voice unto it and said, Hear thou that hast borne rule over the earth so long. This I say unto thee, before thou beginnest to appear no more. Right? This is the spirit pretty much talking to Augustus. Right? Him that he was the one that ruled for so long. Verse 17. It says, There shall none after thee attain unto thy time, neither unto the half thereof. Right? So all the rulers that are going to come after Augustus, it says that none of them were going to rule as long as him, and none even half the time that he ruled. Okay? And you go into the history, right? And it's perfect. None of them ruled more than half or longer than him, right? Especially not longer than him. The only one that got close, right, was Tiberius, right? And because Tiberius, right? How long did Tiberius rule? Tiberius, it says that he ruled from 14 to 37 AD. Okay, and that was around 14 to 37 AD. So 37 minus 14, he ruled 23 years. Whereas, um, what was his name? Yeah, he ruled 37 years. Or no, what was that again? 37. The quick maths. So Tiberius ruled 23, and Flavius, not Flavius, Tiberius ruled 23, and Augustus ruled 45, right? So pretty much Tiberius, he met that halfway mark, right at halfway. And let me go connect my charger before the laptop dies. Give me a second. Yeah, let me actually pause the video. This downstairs. Okay, I'm back. Let's see, where was I at? There came a voice unto it. Let's see, where was I on about? I think I was making the calculation of, yeah, Tiberius. Yeah, I had it here. So pretty much going into how Tiberius ruled pretty much halfway of what Augustus ruled. Right? One thing you have to understand about the prophecies is that pretty much it goes into a circa. Right? It's not pinpoint specific accuracy. Right? It's just going into relative. Right? And relatively, he hit half. Right? Less than half or half. Okay, and it also depends how you mark out when they ruled and when they ended, right? So you have to take all these things into consideration, but still the point still stands that this is what it's talking about, because just wait till we get to the lower scriptures and we break it down even more. Let's see, verse 17, there shall none after thee attain unto thy time, and neither unto the half thereof, right? And the only one that did that was Tiberius, and after that, hey, the other Caesars, they ruled pretty much no time, right? Yahweh was making those Caesars run, right? Run and run and run and get through that rulership. Verse 18, then arose the third and reigned as the other before and appeared no more also, right? This is Tiberius. And then it says, so went it with all the residue one after another, as that every one reigned and then appeared no more, right? And this is Esdras pretty much seeing, right, the rulerships, him after him after him after him. And then it says, then I beheld, and lo, in process of time, the feathers that followed stood up on the right side, that they might rule also, and some of them ruled, but within a while they appeared no more. Right? Same thing. These rulers just came up, they ruled, and then they disappeared. Right? Just going down that list of the Caesars. It says, for some of them were set up but ruled not. Right? You had some Caesars where they were set up to rule, but ultimately what they ruled was pretty much nothing. Verse 22, it says, after this I looked, and behold, the 12 feathers appeared no more, nor the 2 little feathers. And there was no more upon the eagle's body, but 3 heads that rested, and 6 little wings. Then saw I also that 2 little feathers divided themselves from the 6, and remained under the head that was upon the right side, for the 4 continued in their place. And I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing thought to set themselves up and to have rule. Right, and now here we have these 4 feathers, where it starts going into what we have right here. the year of the four emperors. Okay, and this is here towards the latter end, right, with Galba, Otto, Vitellius, and Vespasian, as it says right here. Galba, Otto, Vitellius, and Vespasian. And pretty much these people, they all came and ruled and ended in 1 year. So it just goes to show that, hey, Yahweh, he was making these emperors come and go to speed up the timeline, right? And imagine it's like having four presidents in 1 year, right? It was just insanity. These people, these Caesars were out here backstabbing and killing each other, and nothing new with these Edomites. Okay, but where's that? Okay, verse 25, it says, "And I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing thought to set them up, Salakia. And I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing thought to set up themselves and to have the rule. And I beheld, and lo, there is one set up, but shortly it appeared no more." Right, that one is talking about, Galba, right? The book about Galba is short. Galba was the first emperor of the year of the four emperors. Right, let's see how long he ruled. How long did Galba rule? He ruled 7 months. Okay? As it says, "And I beheld, and lo, there is one set up, but shortly it appeared no more. And the second was sooner away than the first." So the second after him, right, was Otto. Right? Going into that year of the four emperors, Otto. Let's see how long Otto ruled. How long did Otto rule? Otto ruled 3 months, right? So it lines up with the prophecy, right? Esdras, hey, with that vision was on point. And which proves the Bible is correct. You just have to be able to interpret it. It says, "And I beheld, and lo, the two that remained thought also in themselves to reign." Right? The two that remained were Vitellius and Vespasian. Right? And if you go into the breakdown or just the description of Vitellius, let's see. Let's search him up here. Vitellius. Right, Vitellius was proclaimed emperor following the quick succession of the previous emperors Galba and Otto in a year of civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. Vitellius was the first to add blah blah blah. Right, I can't find what I was looking for, but regardless, let's keep on going. But as said, it says, "And I beheld, and lo, the two that remained thought also in themselves to reign." Right, you had Vitellius and Vespasian. "And when they so thought, behold, there awaked one of the heads that were at rest, namely, it that was in the midst, for that was greater than the two other heads." Right, going back to what we read right here, verse 9, "But let the heads be at rest." Right, going into how they pretty much passed away, right? Julius, Pompey, and Crassus. But now it says, while these two were thinking about it, you had one of those heads that were at rest, namely it that was in the midst, going into Julius, right? He came back, right? Which this was always, it was all talking about Vespasian, right? Vespasian was Julius in the reincarnation, right? It's when it says he awoke, it's just talking about he was coming back to power. And the way he's doing this is talking about, or is coming through with the Flavian dynasty, right? But once again, and when they so thought, behold, there awaked one of the heads that were at rest, namely, it that was in the midst, for that was greater than the two other heads. And then I saw that the two other heads were joined with it, right? Those two other heads goes into Pompey and Crassus, and ultimately in the reincarnation, they came by the way of the sons of Vespasian, which were Titus and Domitian. Okay? And ultimately it says, "And then I saw the two other heads were joined with it. And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the two feathers under the wing that would have reigned." Right? And this is talking about how Vespasian, right? So when you read this, you'll say, so how was those two feathers, Vitalis, or how do you say it? Vitalis and Vespasian is the head and he ate himself, right? All this pretty much going into is that the way of ruling, right? Because Vespasian, right, he wasn't ruling, or how do I say this? Vitalis, right, he was ate up by Vespasian, but then you say, how did Vespasian, the head, eat Vespasian, the feather? It's just going into how when you have Vespasian coming as the head, He wasn't coming by just Vespasian, he was coming as the Flavian dynasty, right? If it was Vespasian ruling by himself, it wouldn't have been the Flavian dynasty, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay? That head was going into the Flavian dynasty, which conquered just the way of Vespasian doing things by himself. Okay? And actually, I think Vitalis, he was killed by. Let me see who he was killed by. Vitellius. Let's see his death. Early life. No, no, no. Abdication and death. Right. Let me see. Let me search it up. How did Vitellius die? Assassination by who though? Who assassinated Vitellius? Right, which leads to the prophecy. Right, it says that that head ate the two little feathers, going into Vespasian or the Flavian dynasty. Then you read who assassinated Vitellius. Right, once he realized his support was wavering, Vitellius prepared to abdicate in favor of Vespasian. He was not allowed to do so by his supporters, resulting in a brutal battle for Rome between Vitellius' forces and the armies of Vespasian. He was executed in Rome by Vespasian's soldiers on 20 December 69. Right, so ultimately that head did eat up that little feather, which was Vitellius and Vespasian. Right, with that head being the Flavian dynasty. Okay, but let's go to where was I at? Right, and I beheld the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the two feathers under the wing that would have reigned. But this head put the whole earth in fear, and bare rule in it over all those that dwelt upon the earth, with much oppression, and he had the governance of the world more than all the wings that have been. Right, and as I was saying, this head was a Flavian dynasty, having Vespasian, right, Titus, and Domitian. Okay, and through the Flavian dynasty, Jake was catching hell, right? The nation of Israel was catching hell, right? And we can read that here, right? The Flavian dynasty ruled the Roman Empire between AD 69 and 96, encompassing the reigns of Vespasian and his two sons, Titus and Domitian. The Flavian rose to power. Let's just get down to the bottom. It says, although the dynasty proved to be short lived, several significant historic, economic, and military events took place during their reign. Right, and one of those events was the sacking of the temple, right, 70 AD, which was ultimately led by Titus. Right, let's search that up. 70 AD, the siege of Jerusalem, going into the first Jewish-Roman war, right, which as it says right here, let's find them. Let's just search up 70 AD Titus. Alright, I said it right there. The siege of Jerusalem of 70 CE was the decisive event of the First Jewish-Roman War, in which the Roman army, led by future Emperor Titus, besieged Jerusalem, the center of Jewish rebel resistance in the Roman province of Judea. Right? So that's ultimately how this head, right, put the whole earth in fear and bear rule in it over all those that dwelt upon the earth with much oppression. And he had the governance of the world more than all the winds that had been. Right? They were out here conquering, right? Destroying, ruling. Right? Let's see if I can search up some notable things that they have done. Flavian Dynasty, notable events. Right? The famous Colosseum was begun by Vespasian, the temple being destroyed, and the Ark of Titus, right? The Ark of Titus goes into pretty much a monument they made, right? Boasting, right, about destroying the temple, right? And it shows it here. This is pretty much what it is, the Ark of Titus, and they built this, pretty much making fun of taking down as an accomplishment. Pretty much, how do I say this? They made this as a symbol of their power, right? Pretty much mocking Israel and showing how they took down the temple, how they're so great and powerful. Right here, right in the inside, it shows them taking the menorah and taking all the things from inside the temple. Right, here's a clear picture. right? All these Edomites holding the menorah, holding all the gold and all the things that we had, and pretty much destroying the nation of Israel. And they glorify in that, right? They glorify in that. And this is actually, I think the Ark of Titus is one of the eight, um, what's it called? One of the great wonders. Let me see if it was that. I think it's labeled as one of the great wonders in the world. Which that just shows the pride of these people. They're literally boasting and taking down the Israelites. Okay? But I just wanted to get into that on how they oppressed and pretty much the things they were doing. But verse 33 it says, "And after this I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more like as the wings." Right? That head being Vespasian. Right? He passed away. And it says, "But there remained the two heads, which also in like sort ruled upon the earth and over those that dwelt therein." Right? The two heads going into Titus and Domitian, right? Through the Flavian dynasty. Right? And I want to get a point is that Vespasian, right, he actually passed away, shitting himself. Right? Vespasian, death. Um, let's see. Vespasian, let's go on Wikipedia, see if it shows his death. Let's find that. Death. Right. In the ninth consulship, Vespasian had a slight illness in Campania, and returning at once to Rome, he left for Aquileia Situlia and the country round Rieti, where he spent every summer. However, his illness worsened, and he developed severe diarrhea. With the feeling overwhelming in on his deathbed, he incited Vai puto Deus fio. Dear me, I think I'm becoming a god. Right, so while he was on his deathbed, pretty much having insane diarrhea, shitting himself, he's over here saying, damn, dear me, I think I'm becoming a god. According to the Theodotus, the 12 Caesars. And then it says, taking on a sudden, with such an attack of diarrhea, that he all but swooned. He said an emperor ought to die standing. And while he was struggling to get on his feet, he died in the arms of those who tried to help him on the 9th day before the calends of July, at the age of 69 years, 7 months and 7 days. Right, so pretty much, he died shitting himself while he was trying to get up, right, in the arms of those who try to help him, which that actually ties into 2nd Esdras, the 12th chapter, because 2nd Esdras, the 12th chapter, is pretty much breaking down the 11th chapter, okay, and it talks about that. If we scroll down, where was it at? If we scroll down, search up pain, right? Where do we start? Verse 24 says that of those that dwell therein with much oppression, above all those that were before them, right? Going into that Vespasian dynasty, or the not Vespasian dynasty, but the man, what was it called? It left my mind. Flavian dynasty, Flavius dynasty. Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. Flavian dynasty. Okay, but as it says, and whereas thou sawest that the great head appeared no more, it signifieth that one of them shall die upon his bed, and yet with pain. Right, and that head being Vespasian, right, as we read in his account, going into how he died, right, in the arms, right, shitting himself with great pain. It says, for the two that remain shall be with the sword. For the sword of the one shall devour the other, but at the last shall he fall through the sword himself. Right, and this was talking about Titus and Domitian, right, because it was rumored that Titus was killed by Domitian, right, and that's going into how he was killed by the sword, right, he was poisoned, that's what they say, and I'm going to bring that up, but also how Domitian, he also fell by the sword himself, right, he was killed by guards, okay, and I'm going to get back to this. Let's just keep going down 11. Let's see, where was I at? Right, verse 34. But there remained the two heads, right, Titus and Domitian, which also in like sort ruled upon the earth and over those that dwelt therein. And I beheld, and lo, the head upon the right side devoured it that was upon the left side. Right, exactly how we read in 2nd Esdras chapter 12. Right, going into how Domitian, right, killed Titus. As it says right here, for the sword of the one shall devour the other. Okay? And it says, right? The head upon the right side devoured it that was upon the left side. And then I heard a voice which said unto me, Look before thee, and consider the thing that thou seest. Okay, now let's get into the account of what I just said about Titus being killed by Domitian, right? Which proves what we just read about the right side killing the left and the other head eating the other, right? And that also signifies the end of that dynasty, the end of the Flavian dynasty, because they both died. But let's go. Where was I at? Titus. Right, let's get the account of Titus. Search him up. Titus, his death. Um, let's see. Let's see what's this right here. Right, Titus. Historians have speculated on his exact nature of his death, and to which mistake Titus alluded in his final words. Philostratus wrote that he was poisoned by Domitian with the sea hare, right, and that his death had been foretold to him by Apollonius of Tyana. Suetonius and Cassius maintain that he died of natural causes, but both accuse Domitian of having left the ailing Titus for dead. Consequently, Dio believed the mistake to refer to not having Titus' brother executed when he is found to be openly plotting against him, right? Because right before Titus died, it said appeared that allegedly his last words that Titus said was that I have made but one mistake, right? And that one mistake is that, as it says right here, right? I read this backwards. Let's reread that. It says allegedly the last words he uttered before passing away were I have made but one mistake. And it says right here, consequently, Dio believed the mistake to refer to not having Titus's brother executed when he was found to be openly plotting against him, right? Because Domitian was found to be he was Scanevan, right? He was trying to take down Titus, right? And that was found, and that's why they were trying to connect that, saying that Domitian did it, and ultimately we can see how it connects, and it connects to prophecy, right? The right hand or the right head killing the left head, right? As it was said. And then we go into Domitian, right? How did Domitian die, right? Domitian's reign came to an end in 96 when he was assassinated by court officials, right? So, hey, it links in perfectly, right? As we read right here, for the two that remain shall be slain with the sword. For the sword of the one shall devour the other, that being Domitian, killing Titus, right? But at the last shall he fall through the sword himself, right? Domitian being killed by those guards. And as we read it, let's go back to it and look it together. Verse 35. And I beheld, and lo, the head upon the right side devoured it that was upon the left side, right? Going into Domitian, killing Titus. Okay? But now let's go on to verse 37. It says, And I beheld, and lo, as it were a roaring lion chased out of the wood, and I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle, and said, and that roaring lion represents Yahushua, the Messiah. Okay, and it talks about that right here. In verse 31, it says, And the lion, whom thou sawest rising up out of the wood and roaring, speaking to the eagle, and rebuking her for her unrighteousness, with all the words which thou hast heard, this is the anointed, which the highest hath kept for them, and for their wickedness unto the end. He shall reprove and shall upbraid them for their cruelty. Right? That lion is going into Yahushua, because he was also referred to as the lion of the tribe of Judah. Let's get that real quick. Lion. Search of Jesus, lion, Judah. Get that verse. Because it says it, I forgot exactly where it says it. Revelation 5:5. There's only two scriptures in the entire Bible where it refers to Yahushua as the lion. It's in Revelation 5:5 and 2nd Esdras chapter 12. But it says, And one of the elders saith unto me, Weep not, behold, the lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof. Right, going into Yahushua. Okay? Let's keep on reading. It says, right, And hear thou, I will talk with thee, and the highest shall say unto thee, Art not thou it that remainest of the four beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them? Right? These four beasts going into those four empires that came upon the scene. that was actually prophesied by Daniel in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. Those four kingdoms were the Assyrians and the Babylonians, right, together. Then you had the Medo-Persian Empire. Then you had the Greeks. And then you had the Roman Empire, which right now we're at the last end of the Roman Empire, right? The reborn Roman Empire, which is that little horn. It talks about, I think it's in Daniel 7 or 2nd, one of those goes into the little horn. Also, Revelation 13 goes into the beast that was wounded by the sword, but then did live again, which is talking about this beast system, America, NATO, and EU, that little horn. Okay, but as it says, um, and the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had a power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression, and so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. Right, this fourth beast, right, greater than all the other ones before. Right, this Roman Empire was referred to as iron, because iron, hey, iron is strong, right? Had a greater army than any other empire that has ruled before, and straight wickedness, right? Straight wickedness, great oppression, right? Destroying Jake, right? I need to stop saying right. It sounds like a broken record. It says, for the earth has thou not judged with truth, for thou hast afflicted the meek, right, which are the Israelites. Thou hast hurt the peaceable, which are the Israelites. Thou hast loved liars, right? That's their mo, is to lie, right? It's to constantly sin, right? They're called the wicked of the earth. It says, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, nation of Israel, and has cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. Okay, and this is talking about when they sacked the temple, right? 70 A.D. They cast down the walls of Israel, and we didn't do anything towards them. It says, therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. The highest also hath looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. And therefore appear no more, thou eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, nor thy hurtful claws, nor all thy vain body, that all the earth may be refreshed, and may return, being delivered from thy violence, and that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her. Okay? And ultimately, this was just talking about the end of the Roman Empire, right? This is not talking about America, but the end of the Roman Empire, the ones that has passed. Okay? Because right now we're still technically in that fourth beast. We're not technically, we still are in the fourth beast. We're just in the latter end. Okay? This was talking about the years, what has passed. Not going into America, NATO, and EU. Just wanted to make that clear. But yeah, let me see. I hit the first Maccabees, first triumphant. I think the point has been established. Okay. Second Esdras chapter 11, going into the Caesars once again. The three heads going into the first triumphant. First triumvirate. And then you had down here it goes into the 4 good years. Salakia. Let me make sure I say that correctly. The 4 good emperors, right? Goes into the 4 good emperors, 5 good emperors. No, not 5. Man, that's Salakia. I forgot how I had it titled, but pretty much it was going into Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian. The year of the 4 emperors. That's what it was. And then it was going into how one ruled less than the other, and how, hey, we broke it all down, right? But that's ultimately what it was going into, is the Roman Empire. But hopefully this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors to the outer bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom, Tilek, Shalom.